A big thank you goes out to Squarespace for their continued support of this channel.
Hello everybody, I hope you're all doing great. I wasn't planning on heading out today, but when I got up this morning there was fog in town, so I thought, oh, I'll just rush up to a little local area called Little Mountain and take some shots in the fog. And then I had the brilliant idea of thinking, you know what, I'll come up to the hill in Nanoose because the trees up here are quite a bit nicer. And it wasn't looking terribly great when I started hiking up. The fog had kind of dissipated, but it seems to be coming in waves, so I'm hoping it'll stick around a little bit. And one of the things that I didn't realize or I never thought about is a lot of the arbutus trees are actually, they have fruit on them right now, or berries. So it just adds another element to these trees. One of the reasons why other than the fog came up here was today I have to send back the GFX100, and I thought I would just talk about it a little bit while I'm taking photographs. First of all, you've probably all guessed that the camera is just awesome. It's probably one of the best quality cameras that I've ever used. The quality between the GFX100 and the 50, I'm not really sure, because on this past trip to the Rockies I only took the one camera. I just couldn't carry two medium format cameras. It was just getting way too heavy. So right now I'm just going to set up on this beautiful arbutus in the background here. There is a little fog in there, so I'm going to set up really quickly before that disappears. Just love the shape of this arbutus, and then I'll try and find some more with actual berries on them. This is really actually quite lovely. I have seen this tree before, but I couldn't really find a composition at the time. But with the berries, I think it just adds a little bit more to it. So the camera, well, as far as ease of use goes, I mean, it's more or less, well, it has the same menus as the 50R. This has much better video if you're into video. The 50R, the video is, well, it's a bit of a faff actually. But you know, if you're going to buy this, you're probably not going to buy it for the video. The one negative thing about this camera is that it is quite heavy. It's a bit of a brick. It's very much like the Nikon D850. Now, having said that, even though it's a brick, it's very sturdy and it seals from the weather. So, you know, with that comes a little bit of heft and weight. Wow, this is great. I originally just came up here just to kind of talk about the camera, but it's turning into a little photo adventure. I wasn't expecting the trees to look so good at this time of year. Usually at the end of the summer, a lot of the deciduous trees are looking pretty rough because it's quite dry up here. But this oak here with the moss hanging on it looks fabulous. And then of course we have the berries hanging on the arbutus trees. So what I'm doing here is I have this branch overhanging, so I just have the branch with the moss, and then in the background I have the arbutus trees with the berries. Every now and then the fog will get quite thick, so the separation is quite good between the branch and the background trees. This tree over to the right is a little bit close, so the branch does kind of blend in a little bit, but yeah, I think it might be a really nice photograph. Again, I'm photographing this in the 16:9 format. I don't need all of this white sky up here, just, you know, I have some white sky in here, but I think if I process it so that it's relatively high key, then it should look quite good. Oh well, anyway, it's yeah, it's a really nice scene, that's for sure. So this is one of the compositions that I have, and as you can see, there is a lot of white sky in here, but if I really brighten up the foreground as much as I can and just have the hanging mosses come down, I think it might work. You perhaps can't see this, but there's berries on the trees here, and even though it's cloudy out, the mosses are slightly backlit, so I can just enhance that a little bit in Photoshop. Anyway, it looks cool to me. I don't know, maybe I'm imagining things. As I look at it on the back of the camera, it doesn't look quite as cool. So anyway, we'll see what it turns out like. I've come back to this scene here because the fog moved in really quickly, and I think I found a pretty nice composition. The only problem with it is that I have these two arbutus in the foreground, and of course they're very close to the front of the lens, so I think with this one I'm going to have to focus stack. But I just wanted to talk briefly about the use of this camera. It certainly slows you down, or slows me down anyway. It's not a particularly fast camera. Like for wildlife and sports, I wouldn't imagine it would be fantastic. I think it gets like 3 frames per second, but the autofocus is superb and has eye detection and all that stuff, so it's very much like any other mirrorless camera. But it does tend to slow me down, and I like that. The same with this head. Some people have been asking me about the geared head here. It can be extremely frustrating, especially with this camera on the last trip, because I don't have an L bracket for this. When I want to do a vertical like this, I have to crank it over to the side, and it's just a huge faff. So if you are thinking about getting one of these heads, be sure to use it with a camera with some kind of L bracket so you can just flip it. Otherwise you're just going to be frustrated. It's extremely slow to use. It is definitely not for everybody, and there have been some times when I'm, you know, the light's changing and I'm turning these knobs, and it's not quick, so it can be frustrating. What I really like about it though is that it really slows you down. You don't have a choice. So if you're trying to slow down with your photography, then you should try one of these heads, because that will slow you down. All right, the fog has gone again, but it keeps moving in, so I'm just going to wait for the fog to move into this scene and try and retake it, because I really love the composition.
Once again, I want to take this opportunity to thank Squarespace for sponsoring this video. If you're not familiar with Squarespace, let me introduce you to them. Squarespace is an easy-to-use, all-in-one platform that has enabled millions of artists like me to set up a great-looking website with absolutely no fuss. Squarespace has dozens of beautiful standalone website templates to choose from or use as a starting point for a customizable, professional-looking website. Why not go to squarespace.com to start your free trial, and if you decide to go with Squarespace, use the code AdamGibbs for 10% off your first purchase.
I'm not sure why I'm wearing a woolly hat today, because it's actually quite warm. Just to keep my hair out of my eyes. Probably be easier just to have a haircut. So some of you are probably wondering, well, is the GFX100 worth the money? I can't really answer that for you. I mean, it is an expensive camera, but it is much cheaper than what medium format digital cameras are or have been in the past. I remember the very first digital camera that I got was a Mamiya 645 film camera with a Kodak DCS back on it. It was 12 megapixels, it was medium format. I didn't buy it myself. The magazine that I worked for bought the system, but I remember that the body and the back and a couple of lenses came to about $35,000. And at that time it was the first medium format camera that you could use untethered from a laptop. So the first digital cameras or medium format, you had to carry a laptop with you to store the images. This camera took CF cards, and I remember the very first CF card I bought, it wasn't even 1 gigabyte, it was 756 megabytes, I believe, and it cost me $1,000. So prices have come down considerably. $13,000 Canadian. Would I buy one? For sure. If I had the money, I would probably buy this camera. It suits my style very well, and I just absolutely love the quality of the camera. Is it much better than the 50R? Not a huge difference, but what it boils down to is usability. Many of you have asked about the Nikon that I have, the D850, and I haven't used it that much, and it has nothing to do with quality. It's just that I prefer to use the Fuji. I just really like using that camera for whatever reason. It just feels good in my hands. I slow down with it. I just really like it. The one thing where the Fuji does fail a little bit is the longer lenses. If you use longer lenses a lot for your landscape photography, then this is probably not the system for you. I always kind of say, you know, if you're going to go medium format, go big or go home, and that's kind of true. The difference between the 50 megapixel and the 102 megapixel is very slight, but there is a difference. So who is this camera for? Well, if you post just images on Instagram and Flickr, then there's not an awful lot of point in getting the camera, although saying that, probably 95% or more of my images now are all just for my YouTube videos and Instagram and Flickr. So but I do like to make very large prints, and this is where this camera is going to probably excel. Just the dynamic range and pulling those the details out of the shadows is where it excels. So will I purchase the camera? We'll see how it goes. Right, I hope you enjoyed this video. It was a little bit all over the place. I never did get my 50R out. I wanted to do a comparison, but the conditions were quite good, so I was kind of rushing around just a little bit. Right, that's it for me today. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to give me a thumbs up, and as always, if you enjoy the content on my channel, don't forget to hit that subscriber button. Right, till next week, cheerio.